let's open this Risk Assurance Committee meeting with the prayer. Almighty God, as members of the Rangitiki District Council, we give thanks for all the good things of our district and the advantages we enjoy. We pray that you will give us wisdom and guidance as we conduct the affairs of this meeting. We pray for all the communities and the district we represent. Help us to be fair and honest in our discussions, and help us to work together in unity for the welfare of all your people. Amen. Now, the reason I was on time, exactly on time, was I was meeting with the Mayor, who sends his apologies. So can I have a mover that we accept the Mayor's apologies? Thank you, Councillor Pity, seconded. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. No public forum.
No, we just note that we've got Councillor Dunby.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome, Councillor Fee online. Thank you. I did see you. So I did see you in front of me in the moment, but you've disappeared, but I can see you on screen. So yell out if I don't see your hand up, please.
Thank you.
I haven't got, yeah. I'm going to do that as part of the well, to do as public. Welcome, Leanne. Just for the committee's information, I have worked with Leanne a number of years ago in a different. We both had different roles. I was on management side of the fence then, but very pleased to see you here, Leanne. I think it's almost, well, I can't say welcome back to the region, but I understand it's welcome home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sure we'll hear from you during the meeting. Are there any conflicts of interest that need to be declared? There are none. Confirmation of the order of business. I don't see any need to change the order of business. Got any requests? There are none. Confirmation of our minutes of our previous meeting. Can I have a mover, please?
Yeah, happy to move, Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 7.1, follow-up actions. Take those as read. Any comments? I think, Leanne, you've got your name on the majority of these.
I have. I wouldn't mind understanding the ethics scope, what you're after. That's a pretty broad definition, so I'm just a little bit unsure what you're asking of me to bring back. I'm happy to bring it back. I'm just not sure what you would like. I have a lot of context.
Can any take it off? I think I suggest we remove that one.
I was just saying take it offline and discuss.
Oh, take offline?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take it all off. We'll
discuss
discuss it. We'll discuss it sometime early in the new year when you're back.
That'd be good. Thank
All right,
you.
we'll put that in for late January.
You're right to catch
Yeah,
up.
and the chief.
Yep.
Yep, right.
Thank you.
And Treasury Management, I think that's in the agenda anyway, and you've made an appointment, I see.
We have. Yes, we have.
Okay. Yes. And Strategic Risk Register is in March. Thank you. So, do I have a mover that we receive that report? Councillor Picky, seconded. Councillor Dave, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Chair's report, take it as read. We live a very interesting world at the moment, right? I don't know how you found your audit, Leanne, this year.
We got through it, my understanding is, and that's always a good thing. The timelines.
I think it's fair to say we were all hard pressed and we struggled to get it, and there were some extra hours that were put in to get it across the line.
Absolutely.
But just with the amount of work that is on for local authorities at the moment, it's difficult times. And I think we had to thank Audit for putting in some after hours work as well. So it was hard work on both sides of the fence this time to get it through.
Yeah, it was actually, I agree with that, and they were really committed to getting us through on time, which we really appreciate.
Sounds good.
there's only three of us here. Just on that general topic that the workload is going to increase significantly over the next couple of years, will we be required to hire more staff, or do you feel as though it can be handled in-house?
If you want a personal view on that, because you will be having a change in CE as well, I think we've got some really good staff and probably getting close to the level that I would think. So even over the last 12 months, as Sharon will say, we have been able to fill some of those gaps. And so remember, it's not only Leanne's staff, it's Arno's staff that are feeding that in. So we're now almost, I think you're saying there was 2 vacancies left. So all of that enables us, I think, to get through with the support of consultants where we're needed. So I think we're in a better position than what we've been. But I don't think now's the time to make wholesale changes until we're actually through those next couple of years.
My comments more on
understand.
workload, really.
Yeah, I understand that.
There's always been a consideration and voiced around the table at various times that it's busy.
I think we've worked really hard on that. Busy's not the word I like to use, because anybody can be busy and not do anything, but I think we've filled most of those key spots, which has given Arno some more time to do that strategic thinking. But at the end of the day, the people underneath him are doing a lot of that lead work. And so we've got 2, isn't it, that are still left?
Yeah, 2.
And one of those is the asset.
I think we've ticked that one off.
So, well, that's about to do, which takes a lot of pressure off, because that's the key to going back and ticking them. So, yes, we've been really fortunate. And if you look around your staff, you've actually got some really good staff that have come here to work. And so, answer to your question, I think we're in a good space.
Thank you.
You know, what I'm saying is that does create risk for,
Yes.
the whole sector. And it's, if I knew what I knew now about when I joined local government back in 93, that we're going to have a rough year like this, I might have changed my mind, but I'm here now, so prepared to keep sticking out, and I think that's the view, right? I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Just on that subject, and Chair, and in response to your report, I think the comment that you've made is very valid, and it is a risk. But we sit around at this table, and certainly as council level, understanding the risk, particularly to your comment about the inability to deliver key services. And we know that is going to be increasingly impacted by decisions made from central government that are yet to be made. And we don't know what those impacts are going to be. But how do we wrap that up into some sort of message somehow out to our communities that these things are coming, and they're coming down the line like a freight train, and there is change coming, and it's a really, really big question, I know, but how can we convey that message? We understand it, but the connection between risk, inability to deliver services, rating impacts, lack of loss of funding, all of these things are, how do we tell that story?
I'll have a first crack at this, because in terms of risk, I still think one of the biggest risks is that community, it's hard to take the community on board, and they are getting mixed messages when the government's saying we should be out of wellbeings and stuff like that. So they could well be looking, even the local water's done well, they could be well looking at savings. And in actual fact, for the first time for a while, there'll probably be increases in that, and they won't match. So we've tried hard into managing that process, and Mayor Andy's been out to the community talking to them. I still think there's not a common understanding of where that's going, and because the government's giving messages, they are not in sync. All we can do is our best, and I think that will show out in the election.
I was just going to add something to that if I can. So we're really conscious of the amount of consultation we've got to do, but also the amount of information that we need to put out to our community. And so the comms team in particular are looking at a way to do that. And we're revitalising some of the branding we use through LTP. Remember our little app man? And we're using that as a philosophy to bring through all the different trains of information that are coming at us. So, you know, for example, where's it at with the water strategy? Where's it at with local water done well? And we're actually putting that as a presence now on our website as well, and starting that messaging so that every time you see the @man, you know that council's either telling you something or asking you something. So we're trying to bring that through so that it's a visual for our community to say, oh, council's got something to tell us.
I like that concept, and having the one point of contact. But we know that we need to be telling people many, many times that that is the point of contact. And we heard the comment the other day, you got to tell people 7 times before it sinks in.
Correct.
So we're going to have to start that messaging fairly soon, given the workload that's coming down.
I think I agree with you, Councillor Dave. I've got Councillor Fee. Has your hand up?
Sorry.
Were you just waving?
Yes,
on
but-
Fee? Thank you.
Oh, yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering, can you just enlighten me? I was wondering what you were thinking when you've written lack of community responsibility.
Absolutely. So to me, is the community, while they, I've got to be careful here, ask for things when council comes with the solution, right? They may not be willing to say, oh, that's not what we wanted. You know, the issue is council goes and consults. We see feedback from a wide group of people. People think that consultation means that they will get their view and council has to listen to it. Otherwise they haven't listened. But also, just like we've been talking about the pressures, the community, while they receive the message, like it's given to them, they don't try to understand what's actually happening, and they actually don't engage. But when something goes wrong, they'll push back at council, you didn't tell us. And no matter what we say, we told you, as Councillor Dave said 7 times, they still wouldn't have received the information, although it has actually been given to them. So it's actually, that's what I mean by they're not
Thank
taking
you.
ownership or responsibility for their part of being, they expect to it just be handed to them on a platter what they want. It's not about really actually understanding what are the issues with an open mind. Councillor Simon.
Just going back to the issue on comms and what's happening with cost structures and those sorts of things. Most people will respond when they have the rates book, and that's when they think, oh, this is not going well. We get a quarterly rates bill in the post, well, I do still, and whether we put some comms in that envelope.
Yeah.
That's an idea.
Just, we have considered that in the past. It is so expensive. And you'd actually be cheaper to send a separate letter out to our community. It's literally thousands and thousands to add something extra into that rate account. We have explored it a number of times, but it's just so cost prohibitive.
In my experience from doing it and trialing it at other times is people open up their rates invoice, throw the rest straight in the bin.
Well, yes.
And it's only when they get the annual, the total bill that we get a reaction, the big reaction. So I think the comms team, the way they're doing things and trying all these different media streams, I think you've got a greater chance of actually reaching our community.
Perhaps we're going to add too, though, some of the issues that we are dealing with are really complex. You know,
Yes.
and so even with the best of intentions in the community, I think some of it is going to come into play in the local government elections next year, where people stand without the full knowledge and can make some statements that could be appealing, whereas the councillors that sit around here know more, and therefore it is more complex. But when you try and argue with somebody that doesn't have that information or doesn't understand, it's a hard argument to win. And part of that goes forward where the government's leading us, that my concern is that your advocacy ability for Rangitikei is going to become mooted. So, you know, my wish would be that you actually still maintain that advocacy role as a strong component of what you're doing in a governance level, because that could be easily lost too. If you start working together with regional deals, local water's done well, collaborating with other councils, then some of that is diminished, and then the governance arm is more comes into the limelight. Because you're the one representing the people. So there's some real risks in this election.
Yeah, I didn't go into the election issue, John. But that-
I'm not a politician.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, that to me is actually, what concerns me is that you're gonna get a lot more, people standing on one issue, right? And that when they come into, and not understanding the role of local government, right? And I think that's a real issue, a real risk. The number of councils that have actually had unfavourable feedback on their roads because of the speed limits on the state highway. Okay, it's that sort of not understanding or not wanting to understand who delivers what. All right, any further comments? I think the increased compliance is probably going to get worse before it gets better. Right? There is, however, should have put it in my report as a Leanne was at the LGFA briefing, and there was a Chief Executive Tamara Arawai, I think, gave the sector some good news or confirmed some good news about the new standard coming for wastewater. But the bad news is that will only apply to new consents, not existing consents as well. So there'll be a national standard, not the standard actually given by the regional council, which I think is old news for a lot of people. But I think the timing, he's correct me if I'm wrong, Leanne, he said in the first quarter of next year.
Believe so.
Yeah, it was sort of, so that might be a good news, might be a good news story until we see the standards.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, all right,
March is the,
sorry?
Which is
March, so we
Yeah.
expected the draft by March for
Yeah.
consultation.
I think the issue for me is it actually saves the ambiguity over trying to do here's a standard. We actually then do our planning around that standard rather than putting in a consent thinking that we're going to comply with what the regional council may or may not agree with. All right, I'm happy to move my report be received. Do I have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Fee. All those in favour, please say aye. Right, next first report 9.1, our health and safety update on page 18.
Right, good morning, everyone. This is our standard health, safety and wellbeing update. It covers the recent health, safety and wellbeing dashboards, as well as an update of our key aspects of the work program. I'm happy to take the report as read and invite any questions.
Are there any questions?
For me, not a question, but an acknowledgement when looking through the regular activities and reporting structure. These activities are reported very regularly through our council meetings, and acknowledging that for this committee, but also in some detail at our monthly elected leadership meeting between myself as deputy mayor and the mayor. So just acknowledging that it is reported through the chains on a regular basis, certainly as per the reporting structure.
Councillor Fee?
Sorry, I'm just interested with the election of your new representatives throughout the organisation. Were people overly keen to join, or was it difficult to round up those numbers? I'm just wanting to get a sense of that, please.
So we got sufficient interest to fill all the required spots. So ahead of our election process, we identified which areas we needed representation in. And yeah, I'm pleased to say we've got a motivated group of new health and safety reps. A couple of them are existing health and safety reps who are happy to continue.
Thank you.
I'll just say the only thing that does is puts an extra strain on that particular person, because they're still expected to do their job. But we value that input into the committees from the grassroots level, because often that's where the change actually occurs coming up. We can drive it down, but if it comes up, it's much more effective. So value people in our organisation.
Just also acknowledge and apologise to Councillor Dalgety. Councillor Dalgety is Council's health and safety representative to the ELT meetings as well, and she attends on a monthly basis. So my apology for acknowledging that.
Thank you. Thanks for your work, Councillor Fee. Councillor Simon?
This maybe not quite, my thinking might not be quite right here, but the antisocial behaviour and abusive behaviour towards staff. Is there any understanding or record keeping of antisocial behaviour, abusive behaviour towards councillors, elected members?
To date, we have not received reports of that.
Yep.
Um,
I was just curious as to whether that's something that could be involved with this report. Just a thought. You have elections coming up and might. Is that outside the
No,
remit?
so really good question. If I can provide some information on what some other councils are doing with their councillors, right? Is they have offered some of the de-escalation training to their councillors as well when they are confronted, right? How to appropriately de-escalate the situation. That may or may not work depending on the situation, but I think that might be worthy of note. I don't think it's actually stepping outside of management versus governance. It's keeping the whole team safe. Okay, councillor.
Just to follow on from that kōrero from Simon, it just brings to mind at a recent hui that was had around the table where a decision was made and virtually a decision was made around the table and virtually within minutes. I feel like it was within minutes because we did stop for one of the councillors had been sent via text a threatening message because of a decision. So you're talking about the opportunity to have training, but to me this is different because all is the other side of it is how frequent is it? You know, how often is it happening? You're doing it for staff, but
Because we are elected, and we are the conjoint to council, and so we do get a lot of feedback just being out in the community. I've been very fortunate so far, but I know others haven't. So yeah, it's something that may be sort of just thought about.
There's no reason why we can't do it for you as a group. I don't think it falls under my responsibility because you're elected members, but that's not a reason to not include you in some of that stuff.
I would suggest that it's not your responsibility, and I appreciate the fact that you would be concerned about it, but I think it's something that councillors as a board need to take on. We have opportunities where we can have a chat amongst ourselves, and how many times do we check in with ourselves? And I think that's possibly something that we can put in place through the mayor, through our opportunities when we have some council only times, and just ask that old question, which we never do: how are you doing? Because you do get some stuff thrown at you, and some of us have got thicker armour than others. And something that is said to one may have a heavier impact than it would on another. So I think that's something, it's a good point that Councillor Loudon has raised, but I think that's something that we as elected members should take on ourselves to ask that question better of ourselves.
And I'm happy to support or organise anything.
I think that's probably the appropriate way. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's not your responsibility, but I think if you're having that de-escalation training, there might be some opportunities just to learn those key principles.
Local government in New Zealand might have frameworks.
Yeah, that could, yeah. Yep, thank you. Any further questions? I've got one, and Arno and I had a brief discussion before the meeting. It's about it's the bit that keeps me awake at night. It's our contractor monitoring of their health and safety. I know gets reported elsewhere, and I wonder, just for my benefit, because we're an assurance committee, it would actually help me sleep at night. Apparently I don't have a problem dropping off to sleep according to my wife, but that's another issue. The issue for me is that we need, as an assurance committee, that even if it's just one table to say we did over the last quarter, right? We did 5 site inspections, 4 passed flying colours, 1 needed minor improvements. That to me would give us assurance that we are taking our PCBUs seriously as a council. I know it gets reported elsewhere, absolutely, but it just seemed to close the loop from a risk and assurance perspective, if you're happy to include that in
Yeah.
future.
That's absolutely possible. We've recently improved our contractor health and safety and wellbeing processes, which includes a link to that data that's already exists
Yep.
to come back to us. I didn't have it in time for this agenda, but it is our intention
Yeah,
to
but
absolutely.
but I understand it's
provide
already being reported. It's just, I'm not a big favourite of regurgitating every bit of information, but summary information is often, as Councillor Dave highlighted, sometimes we need to be told 7 times as well. All right, anything further on the health and safety and well-being report, including the attachments? So we've got a recommendation on page 20. Do I have a mover? Councillor Fee, do I have a seconder? Councillor Simon, all those in favour, please say aye. Carried. 9.2, our privacy update, very brief report.
Sure, I'll take this as read motion that there are no known privacy breaches to report.
There are no
I'm
known.
happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Hickey, seconded. I'll second. All those in favour, please say aye. Protected disclosure update, same again, rinse and repeat. Any questions? No questions. Do I have a mover? Councillor Dave, seconded Councillor Simon. All those in favour, please say aye. Right, 9.4, our work programme. Your first report, Leanne. Welcome again.
Thank you. I will take this paper as this report is read and happy to take questions.
Okay.
I've got a quick one for Leanne, if I may, and
Absolutely.
would welcome her comment as, and I know being new in the role, but you would have had time to have a look at the process, particularly around this risk and assurance reporting. Is it? I'm sure it's familiar to you. Would you have suggestions to us? Would you be changing your reporting methods or what you report? What would your thoughts be? Is there anything there that's jumped out at you?
At the moment, it's actually quite an in-depth one from where I've been recently, so it's quite pleasing to see. It is really good to have all these policies, and it reflects a water came from a couple of councils back, and I think that's really handy, and I think it's good to be visible. And on that topic, my apologies, because there's one I should have reviewed and I didn't get to. I will have it reviewed in time for the next report, and that was around the gifts and hospitality policy. I think all of the topics we cover, and there's a couple of times where there's an overlap of what we say, but they're actually key topics that are really worth keeping front of mind. And, we've talked about legislation a few times now coming through, and staff workloads response and all the things that they need to do, but also our community. So those topics are coming through regularly, and I think that's important. I think we have quite a breadth here, and that's definitely not a bad thing.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions on the work programme? Leanne and I had a discussion pre-meeting, right? And we talked about the need probably to, in terms of our risk framework, right? Maybe have, and I'm happy to work through that with Leanne and Chief Executive, a bit more of a risk appetite discussion with council, bearing in mind that you've got an election next year, right? But it would actually be good if you could sort of say, this is our current risk appetite, right? And then transfer that over to the new council, just to refresh that, because as things change, we've seen changes in government policy, right? We've seen increased workloads, so that actually often needs to be reflected in your risk management appetite, because you might have to let things go because it's unsustainable to try and do everything that you thought you could.
So one might do through Mr. Chair, I've got a pretty close to zero risk appetite, as everybody would know.
Yeah, but if you had a risk appetite, you wouldn't
No,
go
I
to,
get you.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And it's about having that discussion. What do we mean by risk appetite, right? Because in everything you do, right? How many people you drove today, right? There's a risk in actually driving in your car. Councillor Simon.
From a risk perspective, do you have a sort of a one down to whatever risk, as this is high risk and, or this is low risk? What is the appetite? Having that list might be helpful.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, it comes through in a whole range of things like have you got a risk appetite of not insuring your buildings, or what level are you going to insure your buildings? There's a whole range of those risk appetites that the chair is referring to, and you generally do go through them over a period of time. So it is interesting when you go into a new elected term of governance that is often challenged, because you can make savings in that and not insure anything, for argument's sake. That's a reality, and with insurance going up, I think that we are being challenged on that as to where that level is. So it's opportunity to review that at any time.
And for example, right, you might want to say is that at the moment you've got no risk appetite in terms of meeting your statutory requirement to do a building consent within 20 working days, right? Legally, right? But sometimes you exceed that. What are the consequences? So they might actually have a lower, right? That's just an example, right? In terms of achieving your capital works program because of a number of things, there's a whole lot of risks that you will have a different risk appetite depending on what you're doing. For example, I'm going to pick on Leanne, right? Because she's new, right? Leanne would have a zero risk appetite for getting the rates assessment wrong or the rates process wrong, because the consequence is absolutely horrendous, not only for council, but also the reputational risk for council is astronomical as well. So again, but in other things, you might be willing to take a bit more risk. And that's the sort of discussion and have that formalised. And then that actually then helps the new council, whether it's the same again, you actually then say these things we want to achieve. It then helps inform that new council about what is the current risk appetite and do things need to change going forward.
Part of my question was around, having a piece of paper saying that these are known non-risk situations, these have some risk involved with them, rather than have them all spread out all over the place.
Yep.
And it's a sort of a little summary document that's sort of, it doesn't need to be 10, but these are things that.
Yep. That certainly is achievable, councillor, right? So I've done some work with another council. Basically, they've got a one-pager to say, and here are all their key activities, and here is our current risk appetite, and also the direction of travel. Is that risk appetite actually increasing or decreasing, depending on the pressures that are currently on that activity, both internal and external? I think that's what, but that's got to be council driven. And
You currently have a risk register, is that what you're referring to?
no, it's actually part of your risk policy. And as the chief executive has referred to, it also might help you say is because we've got, in this particular council, they said, we've got a high risk appetite for council facilities because this council has a lot of them. Therefore, if we actually had a catastrophic failure of all our facilities, we wouldn't replace all of them, we'd only replace 50%. So that then helps inform your insurance strategy. Say, here are our critical buildings which we will insure the rest for indemnity. And then you go and talk to the community about, look, if we lose this building, this is going to be our strategy. Because it needs to be, it needs to have a three-legged stool. So you need to have elected members, staff, and the community all on the same page. Otherwise, something's going to fall over eventually. We'll probably try and do that after March, Leanne, with everything else that needs to happen.
Before the next election.
Sorry?
Before the next election.
Well, I was thinking, I'll work with Leanne, right? It doesn't need to be complicated either.
And the point could be made, taking on your drift, is that if we have some individual items that are coming up, we could put that appetite for risk on that particular item as it comes through.
Correct.
Aside from reviewing them all. So
Yes.
if there is a question that comes up as to whether we could put in front of council that if you took a risk, this is what the content could be. So not on every item, but we some of the key ones that are coming through, we can start that process.
Okay.
Just one highlight on this, Leanne's report too, is that we have engaged with Bancorp. That has been asked for about treasury management. So that is in here, and we have engaged, and Leanne has met with them. So I think you two were interested in that.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately for my sins, I do know Miles reasonably well, right? He acts for a number of councils as well as the opposition to him, right? So I think it's I'm actually really pleased that we've engaged a treasury specialist. Yeah, I bet you, yeah. I mean, the issue is treasury is becoming more and more complicated, and again, whether council was actually having the right risk approach with its treasury dealings will be reviewed by Miles. And I was just for full disclosure, I was invited to a lunch with Bancorp yesterday, but I had to decline because I had another meeting. Right. Any further questions on Leanne's report? Therefore, do I have a mover that we receive the work program? Thank you, Councillor Simon. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Pickey. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Next item 9.5, our risk renewal. Thank you, Lorraine.
While Lorraine's setting up, so we circulated this morning, at the request of the chair, the current list of our insurances and the cost, and we've also put it on our internal report. You may not have got one, and we just wanted to reflect that yes, we have got all our insurances in. They are within our budget, which is a change probably for many councils, and also the understanding that at the moment anyway, Aon is signalling that we should be going into a bit of an easy period, but that is so dependent on what happens across New Zealand and across the world.
Yeah. And anything further you'd like to add, Lorraine?
No, other than, is there any questions?
Thank you. So in your report, you talk about having sort of, did I see it here, or am I imagining things, going confused? In terms of the, oh yes, the insurance renewal, the primary layer, right? The new building aggregate is 45 million across the 37 participating councils. Do you want to just explain that? And also, what did we have previously?
I'm not certain what we had previously. I think that was full cover, but because of the global issue around reinsurance, the ability to get cover from the international underwriters the risk has increased, so they have lessened what they're willing to cover. So this has been introduced across New Zealand for the to allow Aon the ability to actually negotiate cover. They've put a restriction and a cap on the amount of how much they will allow these 37 councils that have been included. It's the aggregate of claims that they will pay out on, as I understand it. And those 37 councils, they exclude the likes of the big metropolitan areas, the big metropolitan councils. Sense?
That makes total sense to me because I've had discussions with Aon on this, right? And other councils, I mean, the issue is it's actually came out of a number of cases. The Napier City Council case versus Riskpool, and also the case that never got to court, the famous Masterton Hospital case, right? Whereas basically the insurers are now saying is because council is last man standing, as I previously have reported to council, that the insurers are now putting a cap on this, so they will collectively, they'll only pay up to the tune of 45 million across a total claim, right? So if the 45 million expires before we lodge our claim, we could be on our own, and that's a significant risk for council.
And they have said that they're looking at a reporting system to report back to councils on how things are going. And they're looking at a quarterly report back to council.
Can I ask, is that one of the less projects on the insurance? Yeah. So this is a benefit of working together with everybody else.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And through the chair, coming from a council that wasn't part of Aon, this insurance was even more challenging to get and a very costly. Aon had walked away from, so Marsh could not supply the level that Aon could supply.
Yeah, I'm very much aware of
So I
that,
was
yes.
quite relieved to see that we were still in the
Yeah.
LESS scheme, because
Yeah.
that's a great benefit to councils.
And I think this is, we are one of the few countries where the local authorities are the last man standing for commercial buildings, and I think that's, so in Australia, it's the state government takes responsibility. Right? The government, New Zealand sees this as a ratepayer responsibility, that a consultant makes a mistake on a commercial building, or if we don't have experience, we rely on a consultant, they've got the ability to opt out of liability and we end up paying. So to me, as if the mayor's not here, I think as I said in my previous report, the central government want to reduce the insurance costs for local authorities. It would actually require legislative change for this to happen. And what frightens me even more is the current government pushing for self-certification. So again, that may or may not, it may be a good thing, because if there's self-certification, we haven't done the certification, the onus then is on the builder, but I'm not convinced that's going to be the final answer. We saw that with the private certifiers back previously in the late 90s. Councillor Pickey.
So this only relates to new buildings. The new building.
Basically, it's where council has, correct me, I'm stepping in, where council has issued a consent within the last 10 years or a code of compliance with the last 10 years. So there's a 10-year cut-off before a building owner can take action against either the builder, well, normally it goes against the builder, but often the builder or the developer is no longer there, and they often have 90% of the responsibility. They don't have the resources, so they see council as having deep pockets.
And they often aren't insured to the level. That's where my experience recently.
Yep. Councillor Simon.
Just trying to work out the primary layer, public liability, professional indemnity is for council. Where does councillors fit in that space, making decisions based on reports given to us?
Do you want to go to jail?
Yeah.
Stay out and visit me.
There's no responsibility upon us as decision makers on reports that are given to us.
So, do you want
Well, all I was going to say is, if you directed me against a report recommendation, then that would it wouldn't transfer the whole liability, because at the end of the day that you've transferred that, but then you would be arguing that you've gone against advice, and effectively we've forced this decision. But a lot, politically we're putting a whole lot of those decisions to you anyway, so it would be contra to our advice that you'd be in question.
my understanding, having been involved in the Kaipara issue, so basically you are, if you make a legal decision, you are protected, council, not, you can't be sued individually. The only time, and this is where you've got to be a little bit careful, and I haven't seen this since 2002 when it came to the new Local Government Act, if council laws make an illegal decision, or go against professional advice and get their own advice, right? And council then suffers a loss, the Auditor General can order an investigation. If that investigation concludes that you have not taken, you actually acted outside of, no, got wrong advice because you went and got it incorrectly. Now that protects you. If the chief executive gives you incorrect advice, you're protected. But if you get your own advice and you rely on that and that's wrong, then you can be surcharged individually and collectively. So if you vote against something, you are protected. But if you vote for something, then you can be surcharged. I can't name the council, but I was aware of a council that made an illegal decision by calling an illegal council meeting, resolved not to support, to change the annual plan, which they can't do, and remove the funding for a particular staff member. Had that been actioned, then, and had that staff member then chosen to lodge a personal grievance against council, the legal advice I saw would have said those councillors who voted for that would have been personally liable for that loss to council, including the personal grievance fees and the legal fees associated with it, if the personal grievance was successful. Because the council basically went off, had a meeting without the chief executive, right? Resolved that, and it was a bit of a interesting debate. They quickly, once they got that legal advice, they quickly rescinded that decision. But that's the only example I see. Interesting with the Kypra rating decision and the contract, because of the serious issues that happened as a result of the contract, the Office of the Auditor General produced a paper. The saying is they looked at it and the reasons they weren't going to do an investigation into why the councillors shouldn't be surcharged was they were relying on the chief executive's advice. And the chief executive's advice, they implied, was not robust, right? But because the councillors received the advice from the chief executive, they were individually protected. So I haven't seen that used since 2002.
I'm not aware of the first one, I'm aware of the second, but where it can come in is there are some occasions that council can make a decision on a health and safety issue and a building consent. And so my advice is that you shouldn't be doing that. You choose to make a decision to not put a safety rail on, something happens, the onus is on you, but I'm presuming I've given you the advice that that would be what happened.
It's how much risk you're prepared to take.
Yep, absolutely.
Or just vote no.
Sorry?
Or just record it, voted no.
I also think that when you're making those decisions that are contra, it's not only binding the current council, you're making decisions for the later ones that come. So that's why there's those protections in place.
So interestingly, you're not covered by that professional indemnity, no? Public liability and professional indemnity.
Do I need some?
No. Unless of course you're proposing to make an illegal decision, councillor, which council will be then suffering a loss. And I'm not sure whether your insurance would actually pay for that. All right, any further discussion?
Quick one, just to come back to the item on the agenda.
Thank you,
The
councillor.
material damage and infrastructure core, what level of excess are we holding on those? I mean, they're the big ones.
200,000.
We're still at 250, are we? Cool. Thank you. That's all I just was
Okay,
checking.
thank you. All right. All right, so do I have a mover that we receive the insurance update? Thank you, councillor Day. Secondly, thank you, councillor Fee. All those in favour, please say aye. Next item, fraud reporting 9.6, starting on page 34. Simple report, thank you.
Thank you, and I'll take that as read as well, and please report as far as we're aware. There have been no fraudulent activity.
Once again, always a question I ask, staff are well aware of the policy and know how to use it, should their little radar go up on something?
I believe so, and I looked at some of the prior reports to see what my predecessor had done. He was sending snippets out, and so when I sent out my questions this quarter, I also gave them a reminder as part of our policy, you know, their responsibilities.
Yep, good, that's what I want to hear, thank you.
Right, if I can add two more, add to that, right? I was on a webinar run by OAG on fraud by Serious Fraud Office a couple of weeks ago. My takeout from that is trust is not a control. Trusting someone, right, isn't an effective control. Because when fraud has happened elsewhere, often it has been a trusted employee. I'm not saying you can't trust your staff as the chief executive, but
I think that's always been the case.
Absolutely,
It's
but
like the process.
it's exactly.
You know, it typically involves more than one person. It's very rare that it's the person on their own. They typically need a second person to support them.
All I can say is, if there are weak controls, right, it's very easy for one person, but if there are good controls, you often need two people, which is very hard to detect. Councillor
Move
Daly.
receipt.
Sorry, move the receipt, absolutely. All right, all those in favour, please say aye.
Seconder, councillor.
Seconder was Councillor Dickey. Sorry. I'm sure Kezia has got her eagle eye open. Thank you. You didn't? Oh, all eyes on you? Okay, thank you. Tag team, right. Next item is our risk. Oh, where am I? Councillor Debt, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, somehow I got the orders on my out of order.
Oh.
Yeah, 9.7. It's on my agenda, but not on my run sheet.
It's the same.
Yeah, I missed it. Yeah. Right, Councillor Deert.
Councillor Deert.
Sorry, Council Deert. Thank you. At 9.7. Yes, Laura. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is to provide the committee with information around our the council debt position and outlook. Our debt position hasn't changed since the last meeting. And we've already mentioned around Miles and Treasury Advisors, so that's in there. And that's our revised budget to the 30th of June 2025. It's been revised down from 73 million debt budget, this is down to 70 million. And that's assuming that the bulk of the proposed capital program is completed.
Yeah.
And debt limit still remains at 102 million.
Thank you. Any questions on our debt?
Very quickly, is there any significant drawdowns forecast in the next 3 to 4 month period? It still rings a bell in the back of my mind that question came up at our all of council meeting. Is there a drawdown coming?
The property purchase, yeah, there's
Yeah.
property purchase that we'll be doing, but also clearly if we're going to get to 70 million between now and 30 June, there'll be a few drawdowns.
Okay, all right, okay, thank you.
Councillor Simon.
When are we expecting Bancorp advice or
So I have already,
involvement?
through the chair, I've already met with Miles from Bancorp, and he has a copy of our treasury policy to be reviewing. And he's got our 10-year capital plan, and he's looking through now debt strategy for us. And I'll meet with him in January/February, and I'm hoping to bring him to, I'm assuming risk and assurance at the next possible time that we're able to do that, and just talk through our strategy.
Thank you. Any further questions? I think that reading between the lines here, looks like you are doing regular forecastings to understand your debt. I think that's really important. And I'm looking at my learned friend to the right because he's the big spender. How confident are you about the 80%?
It's always a challenge, to be honest, especially for us, although what the CEO said earlier gives me more confidence. We've been able to employ more people and the structure looks healthier than it has before. So, yeah, confident we'll get there.
We did go through the program together. Assess that.
Good, excellent. That's good news. Thank you. That gives me some assurance. All right. Can I have a mover therefore that we receive the report on council debt? Councillor Fee, seconded. Councillor Dave, all those in favour, please say aye. Next item, risk management report 9.8. Thanks, Lorraine.
Also, through the chair, risk. This is one that I haven't been able to put a lot of time in at the moment, and I apologise for that. But the ELT and I, as a collective, the ELT, we plan to go through the both the strategic risk and also where they had looked at their top risks and particularly key person reliance. So we'll start with planning to do that work in the early year 2025.
Thank you. That flows on to my earlier conversations. Yep. Any questions on our risk management report? Okay, can I have a mover that we receive this report? Thank you, Councillor Simon. Second to Councillor Dave. All those in favour, please say aye. Next item, 9.9. Our audit management letter comments.
And through the chair, if I can just add, as per your request, I did catch up with Audit New Zealand to ask where the long-term plan management report is, and I'm hoping to receive it by the end of this week. So, hoping.
So you're not alone.
No, I understand that.
And if you look at the engagement letter, it's supposed to be issued within so many days of them issuing their opinion. Lorraine, your report. Thank you. We'll take it as read. Any key highlights? Further information, well, Leanne's already beaten the chase to further information.
And we're working our way through the report and hopefully we'll have it and to the auditor's satisfaction resolved within the next 12 months.
We sent an updated schedule to them for the annual report management letter, showing the ones we believe are closed and complete. Hopefully we'll see a reduced schedule.
So when can we expect that letter? When can you expect that letter?
I didn't dare ask them that one. I was being kind.
Oh, okay. Yeah, auditor under a significant pressure at the moment. The quest, so that would probably come to both of them.
That would be my expectation.
Yep. Any questions on this?
Only one from, but Leanne was quick out of the gates and said that she'd be in touch with audit because that was exactly the question I was going to ask. Have you had some correspondence with audit since you joined us?
I've not only had correspondence, I've been here to meet with me and the team. And I'm fortunate, I know Fiona from my prior life here in the Manawatu. And I also know Chris Webby very well. So nice to reunite with Fiona, and we're already talking about our annual report audit already, and the team are already starting to put steps in place in preparation for that, which is really great to see.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Just a pleasing note, Mr. Chief Executive, right? Looks like a lot of them are ready to close, which is hopefully a good news story. And this is not a criticism, but on page, on 33, right? We've got one item, which is a condition and performance of our infrastructure assets. You're never going to get there, right, to what it's standard, right? But it'd be nice to actually see what next meeting, a brief update of what improvements we've actually made since 2018/19, but it's been sitting there for a while. I don't believe audit will actually ever close it off, but it'd be nice to see progress on that journey rather than just in progress.
Well,
I'm
I
sure-
could say through
yeah.
you, Mr. Chairman, as I've tried to torpedo some of these in other jobs and I've never succeeded in getting some of them ever off.
Yeah, yeah.
But I do think that that's one that we have been working on
Yeah.
quite,
Yeah, right, yeah, we've done a
Yeah.
lot, so I'd be happy to update it.
Yeah, I think that,
Yeah, yeah.
as I said, it's not a criticism. I
No,
just
no.
want to see, look, this is where we were in 2019, this is what we've done, and these are the things we still need to do, because it's just gonna sit there, right?
And in our case, it's a good news story, we've done a lot,
Well,
so it'd be good to update.
Yeah, well, you could actually read that, it's just in progress, right? So, where's that degree of how much work have you actually done? I'm not saying you haven't done it, at all.
No.
But again, we want that assurance.
Yes.
We'll cover that.
I'm sure you will. And the rest of the other ones are relatively new. So no further questions or comments. Can I have a mover that we receive the report? Thank you, councillor Day, seconded. Thank you, councillor Picky. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Can I have, we move into public excluded?
just before you move
Oh,
into public, just making you aware, Chairman, that our IS department has won
thank you.
a couple of awards, one of which is cyber security award, which is usually asked around this. So I didn't make a special note because I'm sure it was coming up, but anyway, what we are proposing to do is in that March meeting, have a presentation to you that goes through the award they got and the steps they've taken in cyber security. And also they won the best IS project in implementation as well. So these are good awards going against the likes of Christchurch and Wellington. So major ones, and I know this particular committee was interested in cyber security, so having a presentation to the next meeting is a good thing.
Yeah, I think that would be really good, because if you look at generally across the sector, cyber security is up there in terms of the top risks.
And it's on the auditors
Oh,
target as well.
yeah. But no, it's a good news story, thank you.
We are one of the councils that actually insures for it too. Not all councils do.
Can I say, not all councils can.
That's correct.
Because once you've got the insurance, it's easy enough to keep it, but if you decide to get it, it's almost impossible to get now if you don't already have it. Yep. Right, so can I have a mover? We move into public excluded. If you, councillor Dave.
Reason stated.
All right, thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you, councillor Picky. All those in favour, please say aye. It's 30 seconds to stop.